All-night hardware, aisle 14. Promise on the paint chip. The all-night hardware store on Watterson keeps its lights like a polite argument, bright enough to see by, soft enough to let you change your mind. At 1:46 a.m., the sliding doors opened with the weary manners of something that has agreed to be open forever, and I walked in with my phone turned face down in my palm like a coin I wasn't ready to spend. I didn't bring a list. I brought a jacket that still smelled like our apartment and a sentence I wasn't yet brave enough to say in our kitchen. Back home, Chris had said, "Can we talk tomorrow?" in the voice that means please stay now. Our couch is good at staging trials for people who came to be held. I left before either of us picked a side of the bench to defend. Halfway down the stairs, my screen lit with a message from Elle. Leela in the project tracker, Elle in the way I label hazards so they look smaller. Rooftop, just talk. Roofs are experts at forgiveness no one has to live with. I put the phone in my left pocket, the pocket I use for things that are supposed to make it home, and let the door shut on the question I wasn't ready to answer. The store smelled like cut lumber, dust, and decisions that might finally behave. A radio somewhere near the register whispered a classic rock song the way you hum to yourself when you're not sure if words will help. The aisles were a vocabulary test. Fasteners, adhesives, fittings, blades, verbs pretending to be nouns so they could wait their turn. A guy in a reflective vest counted boxes of screws with coin-sorting patience. A woman examined paint rollers, as if she were interviewing them for a job they weren't sure they wanted. My name is Jonah. By day I fix other people's paragraphs. By night I try not to turn my own into weapons. Chris and I have a code that works when we remember it. T means come here. You up means I'm scared. Tomorrow means not yet but don't go far. Leela came back to our team a month ago with files so neat my hesitation started dressing like style. She didn't ask for anything. That was how I started bringing her everything. You shopping for hardware or metaphors? A voice asked from aisle 1. A man in an apron stepped out from behind a stack of buckets, palms dusted with saw. His name tag said Hector, Overnights. He held a bundle of paint chips like a fan he hadn't decided to use. Bit of both, I said. I'm reconsidering the idea of repair. We sell repair by the ounce, he said. It doesn't expire as fast as blame. He flipped a paint chip over and held out a Sharpie. 3 words on the back, he said, like someone who had slept at a church once and remembered the liturgy. Why are you in my store at this hour without a project? 3 words is cruel, I said. That's why it works, he said. The torque wrenches jam if you speech at them. He offered the Sharpie again. Back of the chip, left pocket. Pockets are slow students, but they pass if you test them every morning. On the gray chip, Ren 4, the label said, a color named Smoke Signal. I wrote, proud at breakfast. Under it, smaller, touch before arguing. The marker stuttered on the paint, then settled, and the words looked like they could carry themselves. Good, Hector said. Now if the hex keys try to recruit you into their tiny cult of certainty, you can decline with context. He tucked a second chip behind my receipt. Do you live with someone who trusts kettles? He beats the argument to the boil, I said. I keep insisting reason set the timer. Timers are for ovens, he said. Kettles are for mercy. He set the fan of chips on a shelf and gestured toward the ceiling. You want the tour? 7 stations. No sermons. Tools have allergies. We walked to aisle 14, FASTNERS. The bins were small squares of inevitability. Nuts, bolts, washers, lock washers, wing nuts, cotter pins. Hector tapped the little card that described sizes and threads. People think washers are apologies, he said. They're not. They're agreements about pressure. He plucked a flat washer and a lock washer from the bin and balanced them on his palm. Flat says we'll distribute the load. Locke says we remember how to stay. We moved past the adhesives, the aisle that pretends to be counseling, and into fittings. He stopped under a laminated sheet taped to a support column. Fix the obvious. Label what you can't tighten to spec, not to ego. We put that up after a new guy stripped a faucet and blamed the wrench, he said. It saved more marriages than it has sink traps. Too many words, I said. Compress it. Fix, label, tighten, he said, as if he'd been asked before. We stood for a moment in front of the wall of blue painter's tape. This, Hector said, is the aisle of no litigation tonight. He ripped off a small piece and pressed it to the back of my hand. That's for later. My phone buzzed. Already on the roof, Leela wrote, attaching a skyline that had never met our kettle. I typed, not tonight or tomorrow, I'd like to be proud of breakfast. I put the phone away without waiting for dots. The left pocket kept its job. Hector raised an eyebrow without making it a performance. Good sentence, he said, and pointed me toward the racks of torque wrenches. Do you know the rule? He asked. Good and tight is a myth, I said, because my father had taught me once with his hands when I was too young to appreciate the kindness. Snug plus a quarter turn, Hector said. Or use a torque spec if the thing you love came with a manual, he chuckled. Most things you love didn't. We drifted to the pegboard near the register. It was set up for key copies and little acts of mercy. Taped to it were odd sizes of paper, tag backs, cut corners, even a strip of sandpaper. People had written instructions across them in firm caps. Turn toward your name. Check pressure before speed. Ask before summarizing me. Someone had pinned a grocery receipt that said RENTRING isn't surrender. A plastic cup labeled sentence jar hung from a hook with blue tape. Take one if you need it, Hector said. Leave one if you don't. The night dries them, morning believes them. He reached behind the register and handed me a small magnet shaped like a hex nut. Promotional item, he said, for your fridge. Cold helps letters behave. What do you do when people cry? I asked. Because at the end of aisle 12, a guy in a neon vest was standing too still for the task of staring at caulking. I keep my eyes, Hector said, unless they look at me. Then I hand them water. Kindness is often not interrupting. He pointed to the water cooler by the exit, the kind with paper cones that refuse to be sentimental. Sometimes it's interrupting yourself. We paused near the saws. The warning stickers all said variations of the same thing. Respect the tool or it will make a new rule for your hand. I thought about sentences that behave like that and the ones that don't. I thought about Chris's shoulders on our couch and the way he doesn't let the kettle click alone. Hardware question, I said. What if the thing still rattles after you tighten it? Then you stop pretending the noise is bravery, Hector said. Add a washer, change the load, or live with it and call that music, but do it on purpose. He lifted his chin at aisle 9, paint. Or paint it and admit that you're not fixing it, you're blessing it. I bought exactly nothing I had come for, which was nothing. I paid for a roll of blue tape and a bag of assorted washers because buying a symbol seemed more honest than buying regret. Hector slid the hex nut magnet across the counter with the grace of a passport stamp. For your pocket, he added, tearing a strip of masking paper and writing in block letters. Stop at the shoulder, not the ditch. Midnight drivers, he said. We hand them out like lollipops. Outside, the lot kept its honest sodium hush. The crosswalk did not hurry me. The architect who designed our block had decided once that 5 street lamps in a row looked like a paragraph, and tonight the sentence read simple and kind. In our kitchen, the fridge hummed the way appliances hum when they agree to believe you. Chris sat on the floor with his back against the door, sleeves pushed to his elbows. One ankle crossed the way manuals draw people who are about to fix things. He didn't say, "Where were you?" He turned his head in that careful way that turns a question into a welcome. "Hardware store," I said. I smoothed the paint chip on the door and let the hex nut magnet hold it. The blue tape on my hand looked faintly ridiculous and exactly right. "Do you want to ask me the real question?" He drew a breath like he'd remembered the laminated sheet from some other life. "Are you lonely?" "Some nights," I said. "Not here, not when you ask first, not when the kettle outruns the reasons." I lifted his hand and placed it on my forearm the way he does to check whether I'm inventing weather. He nodded, not relieved so much as calibrated. "I feel useful," he said. "I want to be wanted before I'm useful." "Tonight's procedure," I said. "Touch first, argue second, report later." We sat until the kettle clicked, a small approval from a country where stamps matter. We poured water over mint and called it dinner because sometimes labels are mercies. The steam fogged the corner of the paint chip, and the letters looked more sure of themselves. I told him about Hector and the 3-word test, about the sentence jar and the 5-word bulletin, about the torque wrench rule. I told him I had texted Layla that she was a handsome roof in a neighborhood that needed kitchens. He smiled into his mug the way you thank a bridge for holding. He took the dry erase marker from the cup by the fridge and wrote beneath the magnet, "Tomorrow, keep the torque." He grinned at his own pun. The hex nut looked like a small metal moon satisfied with its orbit. We built a tiny ritual. When prosecution tried to wear a bathrobe, one of us said aisle 14 and we paused. We kept responses to 5 words on the whiteboard: T now, REASONS later. Ask, don't summarize me. No litigation tonight. I snapped a photo of the paint chip and the magnet for the store's overnight email. Hector had scrawled it on the back of a shelf label and got back an image of a sticky note on a steel panel. Snug, then spec. Never pride. I printed it small and slid it under the magnet. I am not proud of how much authority cold appliances have over my behavior. I am grateful. Days did what days do when you're trying to be an amateur human with professional consistency. The chip in my pocket softened into the shape of my left hand because paper learns its carriers. When it gave up, I wrote the same sentence on another chip and stapled the old to the new like genealogy. We ate toast like it had been newly invented. We weren't trying to be good. We were trying to be located. A week later, when afternoon tried to be a test again, I walked back to the hardware store and bought nothing. I left a bottle of water on the key copy counter with a note, "For whoever is waiting for a sister." The sentence jar had multiplied. Someone had added "turn toward your name" in firm, careful caps. I took none. Minimalism felt like the right theology. When I got home, Chris had angled the table so we could both look out the window without interrogating the weather. He had set out 2 mugs and a lemon like an altar to simple chemistry. "Status?" he asked. "On board," I said, hands attached. We failed, and we failed differently, and we failed in ways that didn't require anyone to stand under fluorescent lights pretending they knew which size washer would save them. The hex nut kept watch and did not pretend to be a compass. The fridge hummed like a machine content with its job description. If tomorrow I stumble, and I will, this city sells the same ream and the same bag of washers to everyone. I know the route. Stop at the shoulder, not the ditch. Read the pocket, not the skyline. Ask the question that costs pride and saves time. Pay for the return with a short sentence. Go home by the simple route. Being first has never impressed a kettle, a magnet, or a mouth burned by tea. Arriving with hands still does. The hardware store hums wherever it hums at that hour. Aisle 14 keeps being ridiculous and useful. The jar keeps its scraps. Under the hex nut, the paint chip keeps pretending to be stronger than it is, and most nights manages it. Some nights that counts as a miracle. Some mornings it counts as breakfast.